All right, day 12 here in the shop. Just got in, it's about 9:30. Went to the post office this morning and shipped out 2 more books, one to somewhere in California, one to the East Coast, and I have one more going to Australia probably tomorrow. I got to repackage that tonight. It's pretty amazing. I think I've sold about a dozen books to Australia, a few books to Europe, England. I think I have one in the Netherlands. You guys know who you are. Today's going to look a little different. Ivan's not here, so I'm going to have the tripod and the camera near me all day. We're going to film a few more, things, show you some products and pieces that came in yesterday. Today came in, it's a little chillier today. We're going to let the heater warm the shop up a little bit before I get in the spray booth. But right now I just got a little bit of anxiety, a little OCD. We have too much stuff in the shop sitting around just waiting to be worked on. I'm going to go through this morning, start taking furniture apart. Follow along, watch me do that. First thing I'm going to take apart is this Italian chair. Remember I asked you just a few days ago on who do you think the designer is? Well, as I tear it apart this morning, I'm going to teach you and show you who the designer is and tell you more about this chair. First, let me get the table and we'll get everything going. We'll get everything set up. I always like to say work smarter, not harder. Let's lift it up so we don't actually have to bend down to work on this chair. So with this chair, it came in, and I want to show you. I noticed in the email that the customer said it was missing this little black, basically T-nut, custom made. They ended up finding it, which is really lucky. These are going to be really hard to replace. So what I'm going to do is tear it apart, figure out, if the bolt is still behind it. And as you notice, the chair is really rocking. So I want to make sure structurally the chair is safe before we actually fully disassemble and get it ready to go into the stripping pile. So the first thing I see, there's some bolts under here. We're going to take the arms off first, kind of get an idea what we're working with at that point. That should expose the backside of the bolts and these little nuts. Now I got those screws off. What I'm going to do is label as I take these arms off, so we know that they go back in the same location. Later in the process. It's always good to label these because it is just as easy to these could have gone backwards and then we'd know it'd be incorrect. So a little piece of tape. I always like to say this is the right arm, like that, and then I'll put a arrow like this towards the front, so we know that this is the front of the arm. What I'm going to do is put the hardware inside of a piece of paper, label that, get that in a bag. We'll get on to the next step here. So it's a little hard to tell maybe in the camera, but you can see on the inside that the inside bolts are here. Here's the second one, which would be, let me see, this one here. But there's going to be a third, or the fourth one, which is the missing one, is behind the fabric. I can't get to it. And this chair is kind of unique that I'm going to actually, the bolts run through the plywood into the frame of the chair, just like on the ottoman when we did that last week. But I said what I'm going to have to do is tear apart the top section, remove this lower section so I can get this fabric off. That will expose the frame. Then I can tighten everything up, make sure it works properly before we move on. Let's see. Next size up. And make sure we label these screws as well so we know where they came from. When we get it finished, we can put it back together. Leave that last one until I get all set up. I don't want it to just fall down. All right, I got all 4 screws out, and here's the big surprise that usually this is sun faded. You're gonna see there's the original color right there. Kind of a lot more of, I think this is mahogany. We originally thought it might have been beech, but it's definitely a mahogany color underneath here, a little bit more red tone. I'm gonna send that to the customer, show her what the original color was, and see what they wanna do. They really like this bleached color. It goes with the character of their house. They've had this chair, I think, for 10 years, so they don't wanna take that away from it. But yeah, now that we got this off, just like that, we wanna make sure, let's see if, and it's just like the base, it pops off. There's the threaded inserts on the back side. or the T-nuts, I think technically what they're called, and that's what's going to actually keep it and pull it nice and tight against the fabric. Beautiful. I'll label this and we'll get on to the next piece. Now you can see that the top section is removed. You can see now there's 3 more bolts holding this in. As I said, this chair is a pretty good replica of the Eames chair. The logistics to have this work the way it does, to only be really, you're only going to have 2 screws that are exposed, and then obviously the 4 that are underneath the arm. But having these run to hold the structure and then hold the fabric at the same time, it actually is better than an Eames chair in my opinion, because it's pulling the fabric back and keeping it really tight against this edge. And if you've ever seen an Eames chair or sat in one, you know that you can kind of see behind the fabric at times. There's times when it wears down, you'll start seeing the zipper. So it's just not not always the best looking, in my opinion. This is the first chair I've ever seen that had this type of setup. Like I said, a lot more engineering and designing went into this piece for sure. I'm going to label this right now before I forget. Make sure that we know that this is the bottom section, because there is a different curve to it. So it is possible that I could put it together wrong, when we're on reassembly. Get these the last 4 screws out, and then we can see what's going on with the interior brackets. Once again, you can see that original kind of reddish tone color coming through. But now we have the exposure to these brackets, and you can see even here's the one that was missing. Luckily, the screw, remained. It stayed in there. It's definitely said it's been worn out a little bit. So what we're going to do is put that piece back in, tighten it back down, make sure there's no structural issues before we move on. And they all were a little loose. All 8 screws were a little loose. Now, structurally, this isn't rocking anymore. When we're done, I'm actually going to torque it down a little bit more, but I just wanted to make sure there was no structural issues. It's nice and tight. Again, this back wasn't supposed to be teetering. I'm going to remove the arm section, these black little grommets, and then we'll take off the lower section, and we can kind of figure out who designed this chair. And just like that, we are just about done with this chair, taking it apart. Looks like we have about 4 more screws as well on the bottom of this rail. And on the bottom of this rail is where it shows who the manufacturer is on this the center support right here. Like I said, it was an Italian manufacturer. I believe these were made in the 70s. We thought for 6 months when I've been talking to this customer out of Las Vegas that this was a Plycraft chair. Looked like it at first glance. Plycraft has a few different models. So I was like, guys, maybe it's just one of the different series of Plycraft. And then when it came in, I saw that made in Italy stamp or sticker on the ottoman. Doesn't look like the base of the chair has it though. It was just the ottoman. So that's really important that we keep that protected, covered up. Let's see. I'm not going to be able to see it in there, but it's a company called Cofemo, C-O-F-E-M-O. Made in Italy. I'm still trying to navigate who the designer was, but that's a good start. Let me know down below if you know who it is. Once again, it has 2 more screws, just like the ottoman. Little Phillips heads, maybe just that were to set it in place. And then let's see if we can pop this off, and it sounded like it just did it itself. Just like that. Perfect. Now we're going next piece. Next up is this American by Martinsville dresser we picked up a few days ago. We are not going to be getting going on it for probably a week or 2. We're not going to be stripping it, but I just want to get it disassembled, prepped. That way it takes up a lot less space, just like the cabinet yesterday. I can flip it up on its side, make a lot more space in the shop to have access for the dining tables and the other large pieces, the Eichler cabinets that we're going to get working on beginning of next week. First off, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to label the drawers on this one quite yet. They're not operating perfectly. Normally, we'll number them 1, 2, 3. I think in here we'll go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But in this one, some of the drawers don't line up. So what we're going to do is wait till we strip it, Then we'll align the drawers, and then we'll stamp numbers behind the drawers because they do go in a certain spot. Obviously, it's easy to tell. This top one can only go on this other top one. They can be swapped around, but the grain will be matching on these, the middle section here. What it is like a book match, or, you cut it from the same piece of veneer, and right now it's hard to tell just with the fadingness of this piece. We can't really see the grain. So we're going to wait till we get it to raw wood, sand it, and then we'll get it back lined up and put the numbers on it. So basically, we'll just start taking these guys apart, removing the hardware. So usually there's just a couple screws on the bottom of this. I'm going to kind of evaluate too, when you get these mid-century modern pieces, there's times that there's going to be numbers on the bottom, letters, or sometimes a stamp. Every once in a while, a lot of this on Danish furniture, you actually, if you look at the back of the drawers, you're going to see a large triangle, and that triangle will continue down on 3 drawers, 4 drawers, something like that, and that's why you'll know it should line up when you're done. Instead of numbering it, they just do that. That's one of the other ones that I've seen. I said there's nothing on this guy. What I like to do, I said this is the one that has the stamp in it, so we know this is going to be the top. Usually it's the top left one or the top right. We know that now, but we don't need to strip and refinish inside of this. On all these pieces, we're going to go around on this edge. We're going to tape this up so we don't get stripper inside, and it just causes more headache for ourselves. When we're done, we're going to take off the paper, clean it, still sand, take off, there's a lot of splinters on here, take off that, get it nice and smooth. Then when we're in the spray booth, seal it, clear coat it, and it's going to look brand spanking new when we're done with it, with a lot less headache of stripping inside of a drawer. I don't know if you guys have ever stripped inside the drawers of a dresser. It's just a lot of extra work, a lot of headache. You waste a lot of stripper. Like I said, we're trying to cut costs for the customer as much as we can. So, and then a lot of you may ask too, what about the little lip here on the top? This is solid hardwood here. So when we're done, we'll take a block and we'll just sand this down back to the raw wood with a little bit of 150 grit. It'll come right off. And it doesn't need a bunch of paper. Just, one coat like that, just so the stripper doesn't penetrate inside of it. Now it's just like wrapping a Christmas present. Just, hold it down. Don't waste a bunch of tape. Just a little piece here and there. It doesn't need a bunch because you're not worried about overspray or any paint getting inside. You're mainly just worried about the stripper dripping in. Okay, I'm going to show you a little close-up, a little different angle. As I kind of take these screws out, and then we'll tape up this one. And get this thing taken apart, free up some space in the shop, give us some room to work. As I said, it seems like about once a month it gets like this. The shop just kind of gets a little backed up. I forget to organize. I take on maybe a piece too many that I should. I had a few customers this month just drop off pieces just randomly. So I said that takes up a little bit of space in the shop as well. So what we're going to do is organize it, get it so that way I can kind of function again. Let's see, I'll go like this. And it just helps with kind of my OCD a little bit, just to try to keep stuff organized. Get a little too out of whack, so it's almost like with a like a great reset in the shop to let me go into the weekend a little bit more calm, a little bit more controlled. And so this will take another hour or two. We'll get the rest of these disassembled. Then we'll get back to sanding. I'm going to start a new project for a custom woodworking shop in Garden Grove, probably later today, so we can finish it up next week. Okay, we got all the drawers taken apart. Now we'll get the flathead and we'll start taking off the door hardware. Get these doors removed. I'm going to make sure we label these hinges as well, so we know that they come off the right spot, because the doors are operating perfectly as is. if you were to switch the hinges around, it's possible. On reassembly, they don't work properly. So there's a lot of little things we do, and in this shop that a lot of other refinishers don't, and it's for good reason. We've gone through decades of trial and error, and we've messed up a lot of pieces over the years. We're trying to guess where the screws go, why the hinges aren't operating, things along that nature. And doing this just creates a little less headache in the end. We want to come to work and have a kind of a stress-free environment. We'll take these off and get them over into the stripping pile. Okay, now we got it all empty. What I'm going to do is slide it over just slightly. Put a little piece of cardboard down just to help protect the surface. And you can see it go around this way. And now we'll just put it on a dolly vertically, and it's going to take up a lot less space in my shop. Unfortunately, this base doesn't come off. There are screws, but it's actually doweled. These legs go through and run inside. It's hard to see there, but it may be able to visible there and here at the top. So it's actually glued in. It's structurally sound. We can't remove it. I'm not going to break it off. Originally, I wasn't going to post this on here, but it's going to be such a dramatic transformation that I felt it needed to get it on here so we could show how messed up some of these pieces come, when they get into the shop. Once again, this was a family heirloom. They've owned this piece for many years. It was the grandparents. Now, the grandkids, I believe, have it now, and so we want to restore it. Like the veneer's been lifting off of here. We're gonna have to get this back down. Large cracks, leaving the bleaching and the color to begin with. It's supposed to be like a rich mahogany tone. So we will see what they decide to go long term. They may go a little bit lighter, I think, if I remember right, maybe somewhere in this family. But so we'll see. I'm gonna tear it apart right now, show you how I do that. And I said these are really tricky. They can be a real pain to get disassembled. Let's get it ready to strip. So obviously, right off the bat, I'm just going to take the drawers out. That'll be the first thing. I'm going to take the old hardware off of it, take the wooden handles off, get everything prepped there. And then on this one, we're going to actually remove the rear panel first. It's all just deteriorating. For this, it's just, there's no logos, there's no stamps, anything like that. It's easier to just pull it off. I'll replace this with a new piece of, I believe this is just like maple on the back. We'll put a new piece on later in the process because we do need to have access to remove like the letter storage that's on the inside. It comes out of the back panel. That's why this has to come off. So we'll do that first. We'll do the drawers, then we'll get back on this. Okay, once again, get my screwdriver. Actually, this is unique too. It's got these little stops here. One of them's broken. Those will help keep it level when it's in operation. They're old, solid brass hardware here. Has the name on it. Let's see if I can get it out. And there we go. Let's see what the name is on it. It says Eagle Lock Co. Terrysville, Connecticut, USA. Really cool. There's so many different manufacturers of that, of these pieces. And it's really cool to see where the hardware comes from. With this too, these are little wooden handles, but they actually have a threaded insert inside. So it's kind of a mixture of machine screw / wood screw. It's they actually have a little bit of like a tooth on it as well. The little teeth will grab, and then so that way when you press it into the drawer face, it'll hold over the years. It won't spin. They stay pretty tight. I like to leave the screws inside of these. For one, we don't get stripper inside the hole, and two, it makes them a little bit larger, a lot less likely to fall, and we get lost and we lose them in the stripping process. We definitely don't want that to happen. I got quite a little surprise when I flipped it over. It actually has like a manufacturer's decal on the bottom. Furniture and mattress makers, wholesale and retail, Henshaw's in Cincinnati, Ohio. A lot of times, like, this may not be the designer, things like that. It's more of a like store, like where it was sold at, like the storefront. So it's a little cool thing. Got quite the surprise. You can see still some pencil markings. A lot of that will get cleaned up when we do the refinishing process. You know, it's got a screw here. It's got a missing one here. We'll replace that, make sure everything's operational and nice and sturdy again. Once again, I'm going to tape these up because there's no reason to waste the stripper inside. All of this will get sanded lightly, cleaned up, and resprayed. It'll look brand spanking new. But it is very important in this situation where you have hardware like the holes to tape up the backside, or else the stripper will make its way inside. And depending on the stripper you use, a liquid-based or a gel-based, it can cause issues and really get inside, mess up the whole interior, and then at that point you probably will have to strip and refinish the the whole drawer. So once again, we'll just do a quick pass of paper around it. And also this paper is going to help it and protect that logo as well, so that doesn't get damaged in the stripping process. Kind of a piece like this doesn't have any resale value, but if you did something like that to a mid-century piece, like I mentioned yesterday, the logos are what give it value. If you take away that name, it can make it almost worthless, which is real unfortunate. For these, a lot of this antique furniture we see now is more family heirlooms passed down through generations. And they're really fun to see the reactions of the customers. Now we're up to the back side of this. As I said, you can see it's all just crumbling in the video. You can see that all of this is rippled. This had some major water damage at some point in its life. So we're just going to carefully remove it. We'll see if the staples or the nails are going to come out easily. I already see something kind of cool on the back side of this. Let's see what's in there. See what kind of treasure we could find and give it back to the customer. Maybe I found family pictures that might be 50 years old. I've seen that a few times. Pretty exciting when you're working on someone's like family treasure, because they really are excited to see what's inside. Let's see. What is this one? It looks like a budget. Gas, electric, phone, water, central, don't know what that is. Food, their budget for their food was $60 a month. Pretty amazing. Like, that's all this old Post-it notes. Dries in basement, something else. Paper holder. Looks like it's like a shopping list. Yeah, it's a very old Post-it notes. Let's see what else is inside of here. What is this one? It's got the printing. Oh, it's old, like the printer sheet. May 31st, 1961. That's what it looks like, it says on it, but it's like from an old calculator. Kind of like where they're adding up expenses. Nothing else inside of there. Let's see, some crayons, little thumb protector for some more crayons. Old though, old Crayolas. Let's see what's inside of here. There's some cash value, almost like food stamps maybe, but I don't know exactly. Might be like a coupon from an old market. Let's see, some string. That looks like it's about it. Anything else on the back side? No. Yeah, some cool little history of the piece. So going around now, making sure we got all the nails out, because just what you need is to run your finger on that when you're stripping it, and you'll slice your fingers up. Ask us how we know. As I work down too, I can start seeing in this section here, it's starting to pull apart a little further. I have exposed dowel, and at the bottom, basically the dowel is completely out. So this piece of wood has just been blown out over the years. So I'm going to run that around the outside, make sure there's no more staples and nails. And listen, this slides right out the back. What it does is it pushes in, and there's a lip here on the front, so it can't go any further. If that lip was able to come out, you could have pulled this out the front, but then it'd have no real, use case. It could just come out when you move. The holding, the rear panel holding it in, that lip holding it from the front. But also now we have access to the door hinges, and we can figure out why the door isn't operating correctly. So you can see from that angle, the way it's sitting naturally, it's a little bit angled. It should be up here about an inch. I was just playing with it before, and I've noticed I just have to move the hinge down. There's a set screw up on the top. It needs to go down about 1 inch, which is, that makes perfect sense. So what I'm gonna do is test it out, so that way it's gonna see if it operates properly. I'm gonna just move it down about that inch that I have it marked already. Get the screw back in. Do one side at a time, so that way it doesn't fall down on you. But then we're gonna always make sure we test it. We're gonna put that little panel back in to make sure that we didn't do anything wrong. We want to make sure that when we're done with it, it goes back together properly. But that's the difference with us, is we're trying to make it functional. Whereas now, I just got to move the opposing side. So we're going to make it pretty, but we also need to make it functional, and try to get it back to as close to perfect as possible. So same thing there. Right about there. Mark the hole. Put the screw back in place, and then we'll test it, open and close it, and see if it works. Okay, so I messed up a little bit, got a little bit antsy trying to figure out that. We moved those down, but when I fixed it, I put the screws back in, and they were actually touching the bottom when you were to operate the table. So I was wrong there, but upon a little bit more inspection, I realized, it's hard to see, they have these little screws, which are kind of as a, like we thought it was just a bumper. They're actually a solid brass screw, which is what all this is, and they're used as an adjustment. So maybe they thought that this would happen over time, it would sag, and you could simply just screw this up to bring up the level. But with the age of the piece, it looks like we're still about 1/8 of an inch off. I'll probably just replace these screws with a newer, a longer brass screw. I have thousands of screws sitting here in the shop. We'll find something that's maybe, at about 1/2 an inch longer, so we have some room to adjust, and then it'll still go down into the structure of the piece, and give it strength. You're never going to see it. So when it's closed, if that screw's sticking up, it's never going to be noticeable. And when it's open, it's going to be sitting on and holding the, supporting this bracket, which will keep this level. Really unique. Some of the things that they did with these antiques are really special. A lot of thought went into them. At this point, it's time to get it disassembled. So now we know it's operational. Those holes that I added, I will be adding just some glue and then a dowel. So they're going to be hidden behind the the envelope organizer. So you're never going to see these holes. It's going to get stained. Will get touched up. But yeah, it's a really unique piece here. So we'll take these guys off first, so that way they don't fall and hit anything. So a lot of it is just knowing how these pieces of furniture come apart. This one here actually had a little hidden screw, so you actually had to take it off of here first, or else you would have never found that third screw. So 3 little screws, different sizes too, which makes sense. I could see that here now. One's a little longer because of where it's located. Actually, never mind, I just lied. That one's really short. So this has been kind of mixed-matched over the years. We will try to line them up and make sure we get the same and proper screws. I noticed the one that I pulled off of there was steel, not brass. So I said it would have been that it got lost at one point. Take this guy off. I'll remove these 6 hinges and get back to work. All right, little change of scenery. I got tired of doing that. So I'm going to come in here and spray the opposite sides of these little bookshelves for this cabinet. And get this down and ready, kind of move these away. It's a lot easier to do it like this yesterday since we had to spray so much color on them that it was probably safer to do it like this. So we're going to spray a little bit of toner. You can see the difference in the color here. We had to add quite a bit of richness because these are kind of a blah, like cherry, and the customer's expecting like that rich kind of walnut, color. It's going against brass hardware, so that brass really is going to stand out if we do this. I'm going to remove all these my little hanging clips. I don't want to create any lines, any markings on here when I spray the toner. It's just what you need is to have a weird line from this stuff. I'm going to set these just underneath each one individually. So that way when they're done and drying, I could hang them back up, spray sealer on both sides, let them dry, and then come back Monday, we'll spray the finals. It's really important to use the tack cloth once again. Kind of wipe it down, get a little bit of that dust that might still be sitting on it. You just want to just do it carefully so you're not sliding this around too much. You don't want to paint over any dirt or dust. For one, you could have adhesion issues, and two, if it's a lot of dust, it'll just come out rough. And then the next coat of sealer is a lot harder to get smooth again. More chance of passing, or passing through the color, maybe the edges of the veneer. Just this little step. Sometimes you can take your air hose as well and blow it off, and that will help dramatically as well. But now that that's ready, I want to mix up the color. Now on this one, I don't need to add any darkness to it. What I'm going to try to do is just add a little bit of a yellow tone, just to add that richness back. I guess you could say that depth of color, because the wood already is pretty dark, has a brown hue to it. What I'm trying to bring back is that oranger, golder kind of color, and we'll see what we can do. So what I'm going to do is going to add a little bit of the toner to some of that sealer that I've made up. I really don't ever need to make exact measurements. It's by feel. I've been doing it long enough that I know how many splashes it takes to kind of give me the concentration that I'm aiming for. Because we don't want this to be really potent. We want this to be a little bit more on the weaker end, so it takes a few more layers to build up, and you're not just painting straight lines of color, and you can pass the color, you can make it you can change the hue really, really quick. And like I said, then you got to start all over again if you pass. You got to start from scratch. So at this point, you want to just take it slow, build it up, let it off gas. Like I did yesterday, we sprayed a few coats of the color on that guitar pick table. We let it dry for a little while. That gave me a chance to see the color as well. When it dries, it kind of neutralizes out. It's really shiny, which adds a lot of yellowish gold to it. So when it's a little bit more wet, we see the pure color. I'm gonna get this in the spray gun, and we'll get going. Once again, I'm gonna get my spray mask on, get everything situated. The gun is clean, everything's in there. We're just gonna start spraying and see what we can do to get this perfect. I don't know if it comes through on the camera that well, but you can kind of notice a few of these are a little darker than the rest. Like these 3 are a little lighter here in person. This one's really dark. These 2 are kind of a medium tone. Doing it this way, that's why I decided to go this route yesterday. The top was the same way. A few of these may have been remanufactured at one point. Maybe they added a shelf to it, and they're a little different cut of wood. So what I'm going to do is just let this off gas for a few minutes, come back with the toner cans just to add a little bit of a brown tone to the 3 lighter ones. So that way we make sure that they're even, and once I keep adding the toner, it'll start bringing them all up to the right level, all at the same time, make them nice and even. All right, I got a different toner can. I'm gonna put my mask on because this stuff, like I said, is really potent. And when you spray a lot of it, you're gonna get a headache real quick. Make sure to wear your mask. And doing it in well-ventilated areas. And you notice here, I was just doing it a lot in one section. There was a little light spot. So it's really important to kind of look around, watch it. I see another really light strip right here, and correct all the problems. This one just needs one more coat on this one. Perfect. I think we're ready to go. One more coat of color and all right, I'm going to let that off gas for just a few minutes. And remember this little game table, when it came in, remember I said the drop leaves were not working properly. After just a few minutes of investigation, I've noticed that there's a spring missing inside of all 4 of these that, for one, I'm going to see if I can replace it. Shouldn't be that difficult, go into that McFadden Hardware, but there should be a spring that connects these 2, which is what gives this strength. Right now, it just flops around, and that's why they were falling down. Just a quick fix. Hopefully, it's just the spring, and the replacements of these is around $20 a piece. So you're going to be, with the tax and everything, you're going to be about $100 to replace these, or you might be able to spend $5 or $10 in some springs, and customer will be real happy. I'm going to send them a message right now, let them know. So you can see we got 1 leaf off pretty easily. Leaf number 2, I can already see one of these hinges is bent, probably from those supports, giving out over the years. It's probably falling down and kind of banging down at the bottom. What we're going to do is after we take it apart, we'll probably tap it down either on a vise or even just on the concrete to level it back out. Want to make sure that it's operational. Let's see what's going on behind this last screw. Yeah, so there's a lot of gunk behind it too. But yeah, it's definitely not a straight hinge anymore. Yeah, we'll flatten that back out before I put it in its little baggie. We always want to make sure, we'll do that to all of them just to make sure they're all flat. This side actually looks like it was more beat up than the opposing side. None of these are perfectly flush. But that's why these customers bring us their furniture, so we can bring it back to life the right way. We won't cut any corners. We'll make sure it's operational. We'll make sure, every inch of this is the best that it can be. think that's how we created a brand for ourselves, a name over the last, almost 15 years here in Garden Grove. It's just kind of going above and beyond for our customers. So I checked, and the base here is glued to this top. It's not removable. This frame as well has got screws, but there's not going to be an easy way to get it out. And I've noticed in the past that if I were to unscrew this, then this center section, the center of the table, it could warp. This adds structure to it. So all I'm going to do is flip it over. I'm going to remove the little feet claws on the edges. Take off. They have a little side nail on it. So a lot of times they're really loose, to begin with. Just get a small chisel or even just like a pair of, pliers, and just carefully remove these guys. So just watch your fingers so you don't slip and stab yourself with your chisel. It's happened many times to me as well. You might even find some of them are missing. This one here has a really bent one that was only sitting in halfway. Yep, there's the one that was missing. And then last one. So, in a matter of a few minutes, we could get this table disassembled. Now it's ready to get stripped. We'll get it down the line. All right, now that the box is just about done, that piece is taken apart. Throw all of these little nails, make sure we don't miss anything. Put the lid on it. I'm going to write the customer's name and kind of a description of it, and put it in the office. And now to one of the really cool pieces that's in here right now. We picked this one up just the other day. Doesn't look like much now, but chairs like this I've seen online go anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 for it. So it's pretty amazing. Usually these customers find them in auctions. They're usually in this really rough condition, needing all new upholstery, new woodworking on it, and then the metal needs to be re-chromed or polished. Sometimes they get re-brassed as well. So it just depends on the piece, but I want to figure out how this one comes apart. I want to also note too that it looks like it's missing two of the sliders. They didn't come with them. We're gonna have to figure out what to do with that. Maybe we'll source some similar ones online and get them replaced. So the first thing I'm going to do is flip it over so I can get this heavy base off. These things, they don't look like much, but this thing weighs quite a bit. So a little back history on this. It's called an Antoine Philippon, and it was a Jacqueline Lecoq desk chair. The last one we did, it was a rolling chair. This one is not. This is a solid, just adjustable sliders. And now saying that, now that we flipped it over, one of the sliders is still in here, snapped off. Luckily, it looks like this one. It's hard to tell. I think somebody put a threaded insert in and tried to replace it already once with a smaller size. So we'll see. So let's get this off first and go from there. I'm assuming this will all go to the powder coater or the chromer, get redone, polished, chrome redone possibly. All the screws are going to get polished out. So to have a $20,000 chair, it needs to be perfect inside and out. It cannot be, half-assed. It can't be, cut any corners. Every inch of this piece has to be fully restored to the highest level. If you're not going to do that, then why do any restorations to begin with? Now that I got that off, I could remove these screws, which these are going in and holding the seat cushion down. I'm going to do it carefully. Remove all but one on each side first, because if I were to do that, it would just go crooked and snap down on the ground. What I'm going to do too, I notice there's some extra holes in here. So there's fine. But right here, there's two holes. I want to mark with a piece of tape to fill. with an arrow. So that way we know when we put it back together, like there's an added screw there for no reason. We'll do that, and it'll just make it a little bit better. Somebody might have screwed up years ago, reupholstering it, drill a new hole for some reason. And like I said, it just adds to the character of the piece, but we want perfection, remember? So let's see if there's anything there. Nope. The last one, so I'm going to put my hand underneath it so it doesn't come crashing down on me. Doesn't look, there it goes. Perfect. There's a few little shims too. We're going to save those as well. Perfect. We'll get this. I'm going to go back in the spray booth, put another couple coats of toner, bring it back out here and check it before I can spray the last top coat on it. Now I got a really special one here. We don't have the whole piece. There's no reason to bring it. The other portion of this is all glass. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see, pieces that we've done for the Peter Blake Art Gallery. That's what this is. This is another rosewood and glass Philippon and Jacqueline Lecoq piece. This one here was shipped in a crate, so we left the glass with the crate, and we'll put that all together once we're done. First off, I said opening it carefully, seeing this for the first time, and it actually looks like one of the worst ones we've seen of this model. It's really dried out. I already see about 3 or 4 pieces of veneer missing on it. But when we're done with this, it'll probably sell for anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000 for this tabletop. It's a really rare piece. It's French. Like I said, this is I think the 3rd or the 4th one that we've done for this art gallery. So they're desirable. A lot of people want to purchase them. But like I said, they're really hard to come by. You got to look in auctions, and you have to look in other countries as well. I think one of the last ones came to us from France. This one, I didn't see where this one actually came from, but it was in a nice crate, so I'm assuming from somewhere far. So you can see a little closer. The corners here are blown out. Looks like it has a little bit of Bondo in it. You can see all the finish is just destroyed. A big chunk missing out of this front corner. These are drawers, so what we're going to do is flip it down. So these are a really beautiful piece of furniture. Yeah, large drawers. Yep, there's the bolts for the glass side panels. I'm going to make sure to keep those. It does have screws here on the front. I don't think I'm going to remove them because it's keeping that alignment perfect. I'm not going to touch it. I could hear some loose veneer. Where is it? I heard it when right there. There's loose veneer that we're gonna have to glue up. I bet it's super dry. You can see how dry this thing is. So I said we'll get it all taped up, get it down to the stripping pile, and get it started. Maybe next week. We'll see. We've got one more beautiful one here. It's another one of the Antoine Philippon and Jacqueline Lecoq. It's a 2-door credenza. You want to see it right now for the first time. Like I said, I've seen ones like this go for anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 online, depending on the website you're looking at, the condition, and which color, color it is. This one here is all the mahogany. It looks like it's been refinished before, kind of poorly. I see some scratch marks in the wood that would have been painted over. I see a lot of little dents and little dings. This cabinet was probably used in a person's home, not in an art gallery or anything like that. There's just all your normal wear and tear. Let's see if we can see it inside of here. All the little chatter marks. Stuff was probably sitting here on the shelves, banging into this. Said years of use, but I said we're gonna strip it down, get it restored, get it brought back to life. And over the years, I get asked on these cabinets all the time, why don't the doors align? Why are they really hard to get out? These cabinets here are really unique. They have a special design that not a lot of cabinets have of this style. They have an adjustable like slider here, so that way it's very important if the ground, like here in my concrete, is not even, we can level out these to shim this back up to make sure these doors are level. Right now it's really crooked, so I must have done the wrong side. But yeah, that's a really special thing about these cabinets. When they start getting to the 8-foot long ones, you really need these adjustments to keep everything level and operational. If not, you're gonna be like shoving this in there to get it to work, which means you're gonna cause damage inside of the cabinet. These are actually pretty simple to disassemble as well. One person could do this. What I normally do, come in here, I'll remove the bottom screws, which they're threaded, they're not wood screws, which makes it a lot safer, a lot more, you know, structurally sound, especially when you only have a piece of wood that's maybe a 3/8 of an inch thick. Now you got to hold on to it. I have the last screw coming out. Got to be careful because there is usually there's a little plastic spacer right here. Nope, not on this one. No plastic spacer here. But you can hear the door hinges are not even tight. That one is. I said we'll start labeling the doors. Start doing number 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll come in here, do the same with this door. A little bit harder to do since I'm not left-handed. Like I said, we'll get the 2 of them out first. Get it loosened up, and then hold on to it tight. Just gonna spin it, pop it out, and it did have the little plastic slider on the other one. The little adjuster just keeps it from being metal on metal. I'm gonna remove these right now as well. Seems like every cabinet I do for this, this designer, these screws here are always a little loose. We're gonna go back through with a toothpick and some of my Boss Dog glue, put it in there so that when these go back in, they go back in nice and tight. Okay, now I'm gonna just make sure I had a razor blade on here. I'm gonna make sure this is good to go. I'm gonna flip it on its back. These guys don't really weigh that much. Now it gives me access to the feet, the chrome base. I can remove that, get that off to polish, and then we're going to take these off carefully, and then label that they go to the base. I like to keep everything organized. I think that's the theme of this video today. Organization is key. I can't tell at first glance if this is chrome or if it's just polished stainless. I've seen both from this generation of the pieces, but I go, it looks more like it's stainless. I don't really see the chroming. Yeah, it looks like it's just polished stainless because up here is not polished at all. It's got a little bit of just corrosion on it, just on the surface. So I think this should be able to polish up pretty easily. And actually, let's see, I just noticed something else. So yeah, this is interesting too. This one has the solid back, but then the fronts are the ones that have the adjustables. So that way they're threaded, so you could adjust the height on the cabinet. On the other cabinets, they're all 4 corners. Something unique on this one. I guess that's the theme of today, especially like on this cabinet here. Who knew something so basic, that a box like that could be worth so much money? But what it is just whose name is on it, who designed it. Those things are important. They matter. So I'm going to do the same thing with this cabinet too. Tilt it down on its back. Now it takes up less space. We'll get it down the line, and I'm going to get back in the spray booth and get those shelves sealed up so we can finish them next week. Okay, Okay, it's time to get out of here for the weekend. As you can see, we got a lot done today. We got the shop kind of cleaned up. Things are put in its place. We have a large pile to start stripping. Next week, we're going to start working on this set here behind all these blankets. I'll show you that. It's a custom build for a furniture manufacturer over here in, like I said, Garden Grove. Once again, I'm glad that you're here. Make sure to have a good weekend. Come back next week. We're going to get back in the shop and get on to the next projects. See you guys later.